Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to highlight some of the craziest combos, some of the most interesting and likely viable combos coming up in the Rastakhan expansion. Yes, we've only seen reveals from, I don't know, some portion of the set, certainly not all of the set. We have to keep in mind a lot of the cards at the end are going to be like basically arena blanks, and we have some really cool stuff already. I want to give you guys my top 5 list. Obviously, you've seen some of these out there on the web. You've seen some of them on Reddit, perhaps. Some of them I came up on my own, so hopefully I'll give you guys the full picture of some of the craziness that's about to come. I didn't include just RNG combos, but I'll give you guys an example of some of the cool things that can happen as a result of good RNG. So, for example, hunters were not really able to do 10 damage in one turn before. It kind of capped out at 8 most of the time, even just playing King Crush. You know, you couldn't really do very much else. It wasn't very likely. But now, as a result of the recent expansion, we can have a Jeweled Macaw producing the Mage Loa Janalai, allowing you to get Ragnaros and still fitting in that hero power for the possible, Ragnaros sometimes hits face, sometimes not possible 10 damage combo. There's going to be things like these that are going to happen just at random, and they're going to be glorious to see, terrible to experience if you're on the other end, and most likely I will be on the other end as history has shown. But, these are not like, combos that you can plan for. So we'll leave that aside and begin the top 5 here. So 5th on my list, I have Saronite Taskmaster. This is a card that most people just consider a zoo property of. It's a 1 mana, 2/3. It's powerful stats. You get your opponent some taunt minions, and maybe that's not too relevant, right? Well, let me tell you something. Years ago, very early on in Hearthstone, it may have even been my first Hearthstone BlizzCon, so we're talking about more than 5 years ago. I talked to some devs and I gave them the idea of perhaps there is something that can be done in order to counter aggro, just filling their board with useless minions. I love that aspect of it. We kind of got a little bit of a highlight from Hex doing that. You kind of put blanks on their board so they can't go as wide. Now, it's a little bit of a different game today because there's a lot of like minion buffs, but a lot of the minion buffs actually result from other minions. So the combo is Saronite Taskmaster. You can use it with Necro Mechanic, or if you're playing Wild, there's Baron Rivendare, but let's just call it the Necro Mechanic combo because the other cards are also Hunter cards. So basically, you get your death rattles triggering twice, so when Saronite Taskmaster dies, your opponent gets 2 garbage taunt minions with 0 attack. And then you can play Dead, or ×2 if you want. You can play the Terror Scale to get the Play Dead effect. Essentially, it's possible to just fill your opponent's board entirely with 0 attack taunt minions. And yes, there's obviously some classes that can escape that situation, but if you're playing Hunter, that actually gives you a pretty interesting window to just chip your opponent down with direct damage and hero powers. It really does. Now, obviously, it fails if your opponent has a gigantic board, but let's pretend that they don't. It certainly has the potential to just totally screw your opponent. For example, there are some priest decks which only use like Holy Nova as a board clear and play more of a zoo archetype, more of a combo archetype. Some of these decks literally just instantly lose when you set this up. Number 4 on my list is Soul Warden and Soul Warden. Yes. So the combo is you try not to discard too many cards, and one of the cards you try to specifically discard is a Soul Warden, and then you play a Soul Warden, and if those are still the only cards that you've discarded, the Soul Warden will generate Soul Warden plus whatever else you discarded. Now, this seems rather unlikely. It does seem like it's a random combo, but actually, it's really not. It's really not because the cards that have discard effects from the upcoming Rastakhan expansion, many of them follow the discard the lowest cost card in your hand. So there's some manipulation possible here. And this is especially relevant if you're playing more of like a zoo archetype with discard. Because if you're playing zoo with discard and you have a lot of low cost cards and you're in that situation where Soul Warden is one of the biggest minions in your deck and you can specifically discard it with discarding the lowest card in your hand, you can remove the RNG element from this discard combo. You can be playing a bit of a zoo deck, and you guys have played zoo decks. What happens with zoo decks is they just run out of cards, and you have to aggressively use your hero power to a point where your opponent typically kills you with a direct damage card. Now, That doesn't have to be the case. If you're playing a bit of a zoo archetype, running out of cards, specifically discarding your Soul Warden and playing the other one, like literally gives you infinite value. You no longer have to tap, and you're constantly pushing a board every single turn. It's not bad. Third on my list is Blast Wave. Just Blast Wave and some spell damage, really. I mean, that combo is going to be so powerful. I think it's been criminally understated on Reddit, on even my videos where I even talked about the combo. So just to give you guys a bit of a recap, Blast Wave, it's a powerful board clear card that combines like, Volcanic Potion with Kabbalah's Tome because you can get a bunch of cards, and that's right, you can get a bunch of cards. Blast Wave's overkill mechanic triggers for everything on the board multiple times. So if there are like 7 minions that get overkilled with Blast Wave, you get 7 random mage spells back in your hand. And yes, right now we have a fairly large standard spell pool for mages, but in the standard rotation coming up in the next expansion, I would say the chance that you get another Blast Wave from your Blast Wave, if you overkill enough things, is relatively high. Blast Wave's combo with notable spell damage cards is just unbelievable. If you consider like Celestial Emissary, so you get 2 spell damage for your next spell cast, you can do a 4 damage to everything, including the Emissary. So the Emissary will die. Any spell damage minion that you play in order to get killed by Blast Wave gives you a refund, on top of increasing the value of Blast Wave. You can play Emissary, you can play like a double Emissary for like 6 damage, you can just play cookie cutter spell damage cards like Thalnos. There's literally no going wrong with this. It allows you to play a mage board clear while giving you hand refills, and honestly, based on how Hearthstone games roll out lately, with tons of sticky minions, tons of zoo decks, tons of aggro decks, there's going to be lots of targets for a Blast Mage to give you the value explosion. Number 2 on my list, High Priest Thakal and Molten Giant. Yes, it is a wild combo, but hear me out. There's obviously a lot of combos with High Priest Thakal. Exchanging all of your health for armor allows you to play, huge healing effects. There's massive synergy with Alistraza. There's massive synergy against Alistraza. Suddenly a freeze mages are a thing, and they try to do the traditional kill Alistraza. Well, that's a single card counter. You can play, high synergy with Reno. The reason Molten Giant is particularly synergistic is because it just gives you that insane push on the board in the early game that I feel, yes, it's in the wild format, but I feel it's unstoppable. I feel like if you do like a turn 2 coin High Priest double Molten Giant, I think you instantly win. I think even if you do just one Molten Giant, you'll probably just win that game. The reason why I think it's important is because decks in Hearthstone, they often have a range of win conditions. So, if you add up all the reasons why you won a game, you can have your opponent maybe drew terribly or got really unlucky, or maybe you drew really well, maybe you got really lucky. Maybe there's, satisfying the zoo win condition. Maybe you just got all of your early game and your opponent didn't. That's on top of the win conditions. Maybe you're playing a combo deck and you manage to pull off your combo, and that's your win condition. But typically, how decks wins is a spectrum of win conditions, and I feel High Priest Thakal and Molten Giant can fit into the same combo deck while also giving you that early game instantaneous victory. So it's kind of like you're playing a combo deck with a high roll early game shutout. And that makes it pretty damn good, in my opinion. And number 1 on my list kind of goes along the same line of a combo paladin, which will make a bit more sense. I do think it's going to be wild viable, and I do think it's going to be standard viable. And this is the deck we're talking about. We're talking about Holy Wrath, boys. That's right, Holy Wrath is back. And we're actually not kidding. No, we're not. The Paladin Loa Shirvala, which is a 25 mana cost card that you can get down to a mana cost of 0. We've seen so many control-oriented Paladin cards. Paladin has a disgusting amount of draw available right now. I think you can literally play a Paladin deck just full of cantrips, just stalling out the game, healing, and just drawing out until you have no cards in your deck. consistently enough to where you can pull off this combo. The base combo is if you get Shirvala discounted enough to where you can play when you have no cards left in your deck, you play Shirvala, you play Baleful Banker, and then you Holy Wrath your opponent for 25. That's a pretty good combo, wouldn't you say? I'd say so. I think it's even wild viable. That's why I kind of tied it in with the combo with the Molten Giants earlier, because the Molten Giants are kind of like alternate win conditions if you are forced to play your Shirvala. So in wild deck, it's probably a little bit more powerful. But this combo can get even crazier. You can play Shirvala, and then you can follow it up, when you have no cards left in your deck, with Augmented Elec and double Baleful Banker, and that essentially puts 4 Shirvalas in your deck, and those are the only cards in your deck, and at that point, on the next turn, you could do Holy Wrath for 50. Not bad at all, right? Even better than that, the Shirvala Augmented Elec combo works with Timeout. If you can get Shirvala down to 0 cost, you can play Timeout so your hero is completely immune until your next turn. So while you're setting up the combo, you're not really investing a turn, which is a really big deal, by the way. So you can Timeout, which is 3 mana. You can Augmented Elec, which is another 3. You're at 6. You get your Shirvala for 0. It does require it to be 0, but I think when you're out of cards in your deck in this type of deck, it's going to do that. And then you can Baleful Banker times 2 for 8 and then 10 mana. So it just works out. You can go immune and set up a 50 damage combo, and the more Paladin cards that are revealed from the upcoming Rastakhan expansion, the more faith I have in this deck and combo working out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like this video, because I'm sure that we have some more cards, and I'm sure we have lots more combos to discuss.